How is it going, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode of Deconstructed, I'm going to be talking through my recent-ish Jarrod Bowen design. I really kind of wanted this design to have a bit of a similar vibe to some of my old abstract designs from around 2021-22, which is where I had quite a long period of time of creating similar pieces to the one that you're going to see. But I think this one has a little bit of a modern twist, and it's just better than obviously my old work, as it has been a few years since then, so I'd like to think I've improved a little bit. Also, if you don't know what Deconstructed is, it's basically a series during which I go through my old designs and break them down layer by layer, showing you kind of the full process of creating them. And obviously, as always, if you enjoy the video, please do leave a like and a comment, and if you'd like to see more of my videos, make sure to subscribe. But now let's get into it. So now jumping into Photoshop, as you can see on the screen, this is the Jarrod Bowen design that I was talking about. It's quite a nice, simple and clean design, I'd think. Obviously, it's got a little bit of an abstract feel to it, similar to the pieces that I've mentioned before, but I've kind of brought in a few extra kind of techniques and layers into this, and obviously just kind of improved on my work from a couple of years ago, just to kind of, just to see if I can still do it and see if the style is kind of still viable. And it did go down quite well on social media, so I think it is still viable, and I was pretty pleased with the kind of the way this piece turned out in the end. So yeah, let's get into the breakdown. So obviously this is the final kind of product with the overlays, color lookups, kind of adjustment layers, etc. But let's get into the kind of the bare bones of it. So let's remove the logo, final camera raw, and kind of the adjustments, and then I'm literally just going to take away everything on here and kind of just leave you with what I essentially started out with. So the background, if I just remove the actual cutout, the background was literally just a picture of the London Stadium with a bit of a red kind of maroon overlay, obviously West Ham colours, and this was literally just a normal layer set to multiply. Where is it now? There we go. Obviously opacity 100%, fill 100%, and then I've just added a bit of a blur to it, as you can see, so it's not as kind of crisp and not in your face, as obviously it's kind of in the background of the design, so it's not going to be as in focus as the cutouts are. So that was basically the background, and then after that I've basically dropped in the cutouts just to kind of position the details in the background around the cutouts, really, so they kind of worked. And on the cutouts, as you can see as well, I kind of gone through the usual process of just kind of adjusting the photos themselves. So started off with a brightness and contrast layer just to kind of make it pop a little bit more in the middle and just bring out some of the details. I brought a black and white layer, obviously on the eyes and the teeth. Then we did a selective color layer on the skin tones just to kind of get rid of the yellowish hues that you get usually on pictures that are taken during matches. And then I brought in the shadows with an exposure layer. I brought in some further shadows with a curves adjustment layer this time, as you can see, just a little bit. And then on the exposure as well, I've literally just gone down to a -8, and that was basically it. And then finally, I kind of brought in some slight highlights to where the light was coming from. So I initially thought it'd be up here, and that's kind of what I've gone with, as the original shadows of and highlights really of the image was kind of suggesting that the sun, or I think it was it a daytime game? I'm not 100% sure, but the kind of the source of light was up here. So that's what I've gone with. And then after the highlights layer, I created an overlay layer, which is essentially just a 50% gray layer set to an overlay blending mode, and then you kind of go in with the dodge and burn tool just to kind of further amplify the shadows and highlights, as you can see, and it creates a little bit more of a dynamic and cinematic look. And then after that one, I just added a quick exposure layer to the eyes on both the cutouts just to kind of make them pop a little bit more, essentially bring out some of the details. Layer 22, I added a little bit of edge highlights. Edge highlight here, so as you can see, a little bit around kind of the edges of where like a background glow would hit. And then finally I just added another hue and saturation layer, which was again kind of used as an edge highlight, as you can see on some of the folds of the kits and kind of on the faces of Bowen, more so than Suchek. As you can see, I added it quite a lot on his face and his hair, again just to kind of make the details pop a little bit more and further amplify the kind of the light source being up here. Now that the cutouts are done, I would just kind of play around with some detail layers. So the things that you can see are from Texture Labs. So I've just basically got in these like kind of scratched paper textures, and I brought them in. I added a bit of a fog kind of background layer just to kind of help the stadium kind of blend into the background. And then added some shadows on the left hand side to kind of again mimic the way the light was kind of falling. And then I added another paper, kind of ripped paper texture again from Texture Labs with a blue overlay, which is literally just a color overlay on 100%, as it created quite a nice texture anyway. I added a bit of a glow towards the top of this, kind of again as the light source will be here. And then again added more details and just kind of built it up layer by layer, very, very similar to the stuff that I used to do. And yeah, it was quite fun to kind of run this style back. I really did enjoy it, and I've created quite a lot of pieces this way, so it was nice to kind of go back to my roots essentially of when I kind of properly started out with sports design. So yeah, it was quite fun. And then I added a bit of a glow behind the cutouts again, just to kind of show this is where the edge highlights came in, especially on Souček, just to kind of imitate the glow on him from the light behind him. So then I started to add the hammer textures. So this is literally just an Illustrator vector file of the actual hammers from the badge. I then skewed it just slightly so it was kind of angled to the left, and I overlaid a texture layer over the top of it, which is literally just a gold layer. The hammers themselves just had a color overlay and a bit of a drop shadow just to kind of separate it from the layers underneath it. And then I kind of masked a gold texture basically onto the hammers, added a bit of a glow towards the top, and as you can see, a bit of a glow in general coming from them as it is gold, so I kind of wanted to kind of reflect that in the piece. And then I added a bit of a shadow where Bowen's kind of covering the hammers themselves. So after that, I added a little bit more of a glow just behind Jarrod Bowen, just to kind of help him stand out as well, just like what I did with Souček. I'm not 100% sure what this layer is, to be honest, and I think it's nothing actually, so I'll leave that kind of short. I added more of a shadow again towards the bottom just to help again get these guys to stand out a little bit more from the background. And then this was just basically a layering process, essentially, is similar to what I've done with the background. I added more fog kind of towards the foreground, more of a shadow again towards the bottom left, and then I started to add a little bit of like just a glow from the face, as realistically when light hits an object it reflects back from it. Obviously if it's quite a light tone, so then that's usually what happens when you when the sun shines or any kind of light source shines on skin, so it kind of bounces off a little bit. So I added that in. I added a ripped paper texture again, very similar to this one. I think it is actually this one, just kind of transformed a little bit and more of an angle just to kind of cover this bottom left corner. And then again, same thing that I did with these hammers right here, I added them into the foreground, similar sort of style, maybe a little bit smaller, but the same thing with the kind of the gold textures being masked into the hammers themselves, and then another layer of these into the bottom left. Then I added a bit more of a glow to cover kind of the transition of all this, and it just kind of blends everything well, as it kind of, you don't get these harsh lines of where the cutouts stop, where the kind of the ripped paper starts, etc. The hammers kind of fade into the background, these ones stick out a little bit more, so I thought it was quite nice to kind of bring this all together with a nice glow towards the bottom, with like a fade essentially. Then I added obviously a light source towards the top right, just like I was telling you, even though obviously the highlights and shadows on the images were reflecting this already, I just thought it'd be nice to kind of amplify this a bit more. And then with the final text layer, just literally the West Ham badge in a white overlay with the name, and obviously kind of a scenario piece more than anything. And I had a nice combination of like quite a wide font and a condensed font, which I think if I just double check, and well, these are smart objects, but this one was Humane, and then I'm pretty sure was this Druck? Wide, yeah, so quite standard fonts that you can find online, reasonably easy, and they're very, very nice. And if you kind of combine a wide font with a condensed one, it always kind of comes out with quite a nice effect. So overall, this was the design essentially, and then obviously I added some adjustments over the top of it. So now moving on to the adjustments. So if I just hide all of these again, obviously West Ham blowing bubbles. I've added a bubble overlay, which was literally just a picture that I found on, I think it was on Google, to be honest. And I set this to a screen blending mode, as you can see, as obviously it was on a black background, so I didn't want this to show on screen. And then what I did is I've added a bit of a blur effect, kind of where the actual bubbles are. Obviously, when you look at it in real life, bubbles do blur the kind of what you can see through them a little bit. So again, I just tried to make it a little bit more realistic, so I added that in. I added some particles coming from the top right, kind of from the light source, again kind of imitating dust particles that you can kind of see, specks of dust in the air kind of floating about. When you see light hitting them, you can really see them. So I tried to replicate that a little bit. Add a bit more of a glow on the bubbles themselves, as obviously light reflecting from things, it would happen in real life. And then a kind of a final touch with some lookup layers. I did, again, if I just hide these, I just did a very, very basic curves adjustments layer just to kind of get the highlights and the shadows to pop a little bit more, bring a lot more contrast into the piece essentially. My favorite color lookup, which is the 3-strip look, left it on 100%. It worked really well, and it kind of made the piece a lot more vibrant than it used to be. The maroon really, really pops, and obviously like the sky blue is really nice as well. And then I played around with just a few more kind of texture overlays. As you can see, it's kind of like a canvas overlay. If you see specifically down here, I kind of wanted it just to kind of show where the glow was at the bottom, just to kind of help blend it a lot more. And then over the top, I just added like a paper texture from Texture Labs as well on overlay at around 56%, again, just to add a bit of grain and obviously overall kind of texture to the piece. And then moving on to the final camera raw, I added a bit of a halftone pattern, as you can see, on camera raw, and also added more grain and kind of, if I just go into the filter gallery here, as you can see, it's a halftone pattern. And I think if I just go into this, I set it to overlay on 8%, and that was kind of basically it. You know, it was quite a nice, very layered process, I'd say. But I was really happy with what I was able to kind of come up with in the end. And yeah, a lot of people liked it as well. Got quite a few likes on socials, even though I've not done a West Ham piece in quite a long time. It was quite nice to see that. And yeah, it's just nice to create something that you're really happy with. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the kind of the step-by-step process of the video. Obviously, like I said before, if you liked the video, please do leave a like and a comment, and obviously subscribe, as it really does help to grow my channel. And we've now kind of hit 3K subscribers, which is mental, and we're on our way onto 3.5. So yeah, the support has been insane. I'm really, really grateful for the support that I've received this year. And yeah, I'm going to continue to create these videos, and hopefully you guys will continue to watch them and like them. And I will see you in the next one, which should be out within the next couple of weeks.